This is a kind of a trial. We're going to see how this goes. But it's all about kind of just getting a discussion going. I'm going to open up with like just thoughts on maybe things I didn't cover in the review. And then we'll kind of go from there. We're going to focus on some Twilight Princess. I'll talk about the things that I maybe didn't expand upon in the review. And also, you guys feel free to challenge me on my scores for things like if you thought I was unfair to the story or to the worlds or the gameplay or anything, let me know your thoughts. I'm curious to hear because Twilight Princess, I mean, right out of the gate, I think based on how I was doing with tier lists, where I was pretty harsh to Twilight Princess in a lot of tier lists, and maybe people were surprised that I was a little more generous in the actual reviewing. And always after you play a game, it's not always exactly how you thought it was going to be. When it's fresher in your mind, I feel like sometimes you're more generous, but also at the same time, you might have been wrong on something. You might have misremembered it, or you found a new appreciation for it. Okay, stuff I missed. I didn't talk about Mallow, really. And I think Mallow's, I said in the review, I didn't care about a lot of the Ordon Village people, but Mallow, I think, is definitely the exception. It's fun character, a character that I was like, when I first played the game, I'm like, what even is this character? It's like this grumpy baby character or whatever. But I think as I've played through Twilight Princess a few times now. This is only my third playthrough of the game, actually. But I really like Mallow, and I think Mallow's a fun character. And I do enjoy the fact that you can donate money and then Mallow opens up the shop in Castletown. Although I've never actually completed the quest. I wanted to do it for this playthrough and I just kind of ran out of time. And also I donated all these rupees and then I donated more even though I hit my wallet cap, and then I played through the end of the game and I forgot to save, and then I was like, screw it, because it like resets all your money to a certain point before you do the end of the game. So that kind of screwed me over, but I will someday have to do the Mallow quest. Another thing that I missed that someone brought up in the comments was the Zant like neck breaking moment where right before Ganondorf dies. So I've looked that up as well, and apparently it's because like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Ganondorf and Zant were connected based because, I don't know, like Ganondorf was like this weird spirit thing, and then I don't know, they combine powers, they're sharing powers or whatever. So I think like internally Zant is like cutting off the last lifeline to Ganondorf. But again, it's one of those things where there's those two very ambiguous moments in Twilight Princess, and that's like the stuff with Zelda and Midna and how Zelda sacrifices herself but then comes back. And then there's like this Zant neck breaking thing, which just, I don't know if something got lost in translation, but that was just another one of those moments that's like, it looks cool and everything, but you just never really fully understand the context of what's going on. So that was another thing I forgot to mention, but it was of a similar vein, that why I think like the story is just a little unclear sometimes, and that's why I wouldn't give it like a 5. But Midna's story is so strong that like it doesn't really matter, so it still gets like a pretty high grade. So Cody says he always thought the neck crack was symbolic more than anything. Yeah, it could be too. Again, it's just like it's a little vague, so you're kind of like, what's going on? And yeah, I just wish it was a little more clear. That's really it. Other characters I didn't really go into. I didn't go into Telma or any of the other Explorers League. I don't remember what they're called, but all the other people, I mean, they're kind of like, except for Russell, they just kind of exist to start your next quest to the next dungeon. So I didn't really get into them much. Telma is definitely a much more important character, and I think she's pretty cool. But again, I guess like when you have to just do a really high level story review, she doesn't really come up that much. But I did think she was a fun character. And I like kind of people's theories that maybe she has like potentially she's like of Gerudo descent, because she kind of has the characteristics of a Gerudo. Yeah, so I didn't really get into them, but again, that kind of goes into just how many characters they really throw at you in Twilight Princess. But at the end of the day, there's only like a very core group of characters that really matter. So a lot of them just feel kind of pointless. Like they probably could have had one character play the role of all those explorer people or whatever. Ace Bunny says, you like the story of Zan? It's basically a fool who has faith in a false god and manipulated. So at the end, the neck break is just sweet revenge. I can see your point there, and maybe that's kind of the justice, I guess, that Zan wants to get at the end. I feel like I just kind of built myself up in a different direction because I really love Xant's design with the helmet on and everything. It's really cool. It's really interesting. It's a weird like fish head helmet or whatever. But I guess I just wanted him to be this like, I don't know, more stoic, cool guy. But I mean, we've had a million villains like that, so I'm probably wrong. But then when he just kind of freaks out and I just feel like he kind of got made into a joke. But again, it does make him different than other characters. Otherwise, he is just kind of like if they didn't do that, maybe everyone would just call him like a Ganondorf wannabe type of character, because Ganondorf's already that kind of like dude, you know? So I'm probably wrong, but I really liked how he was portrayed in the first half of the game. So it just kind of bummed me out. But I kind of see where they're going, and you know, it's fair. I don't know what it is. I just wanted him to be more like the first half. I don't know what they were going for with the Ilia stuff, right? Because you have the whole lost memory thing with her, but I just feel like this game I feel like this game's story is more about the relationship growing between Link and Midna. But then you also have this side story with Link and Ilia. And then, I mean, Link and Zelda isn't really a thing in this game. She's not super important to the story, surprisingly, in this game. But I just felt like either, you know, pick one. Like, you're clearly focusing on developing the relationship. And I'm not saying it's a romantic relationship. I'm just saying, like, the character build between Link and Midna is the most important thing. So when you have Link, obviously cares about this Ilia character, but I feel like you don't really care because you're spending all your time with Midna. You're not spending any time with Ilia or whatever. Zelda is more of a mythical figure in Twilight Princess, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, definitely to a degree, but she's also, it's like, she's kind of all business in this game. Like, it's not about her and Link like it is in so many other games, right? You know, Wind Waker, there was a relationship between Link and Zelda there. Ocarina of Time, there definitely is. And, you know, we see in obviously Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, like there's always that like personal relationship between Link and Zelda. Spirit Tracks is another one. And this one, it's kind of just like they're not even friends, but they're just business partners. That's basically what it comes down to. Like Zelda's just a coworker in this game. She is not she's not a friend, she's not a love interest, and I think that's okay. Let's talk about some dungeons. What are your guys' favorite Twilight Princess dungeons? Like, how would you guys order it? Snow Peak, Arbiter's Grounds, Hyrule Castle, Lakebed, City in the Sky, Palace of Twilight, Temple of Time, then what? Goron Mines, and then Forest. I guess that's what I go with. Maybe I would have Temple of Time a little bit higher, not sure, but that's basically where I'm at. I remember back in the day, people like just thought Twilight Princess was way too much like Ocarina of Time, but I feel like as the years have gone by, people like, I mean, you can see the clear influences, and sometimes it's a little overt, but it definitely stands on its own and is its own thing. But when I don't know, I just feel like when there were, weirdly, when there was less games out, it feel like, I don't know, people compared it more to Ocarina of Time. I mean, it's the comparisons are always going to be there because there is a lot of similarities, but yeah, I feel like time has been kinder to Twilight Princess. It's hard for anything to top Snow Peak Ruins for me. Just like I said in the review, it's got cool atmosphere. It's got like a setting that feels like a real place, but then it's also like it's got that whole Hyrule royal family, stronghold, military feeling thing, mansion feel to it. But then you have the whole Yetis living there because it's this abandoned building. And the whole story where you're getting soup ingredients for them. Like, it's just really cool. It's got so many layers to it that, yeah, it's very impressive. So it's up to, it's potentially my favorite dungeon ever. Like, it's just very charming. All the cool stuff is in the second half of this game. Because for context, man, playing through the first half of Twilight Princess after playing Elden Ring was tough, because Elden Ring is just this game that came out that is basically the new Breath of the Wild, right? If we look at Breath of the Wild, when Breath of the Wild came out, it's like, this is how open world games should be, and all of a sudden you start seeing all these other games try to make their own Breath of the Wild. And then Elden Ring comes out, and now this is going to be like the new standard, and I think a lot of people are going to try to emulate their games after Elden Ring. So after playing a game like that, and then playing the first half of Twilight Princess, and how locked in you are, and like just the slow pacing, doing all these annoying chores, and like I was just like, ugh. But as soon as I got through that first half, and I always enjoy the dungeons, like, don't get me wrong, but like all the stuff in between the dungeons, the first half of Twilight Princess, it's just not fun for me. So I finally was like, I thought I was like, am I even gonna like this game after playing Elden Ring? But I finally hit my stride after I'd gotten my fill with Elden Ring, gotten to the second half of Twilight Princess, got like playing through it. I was like, oh, okay, thank God. Like, this game is still great, but that first half is just real rough. Cody says in the Boss Keys video, he points out that most of the Twilight Princess dungeons are structured pretty similarly if you think about it. No, for sure. Like, most of the time, I think in Twilight Princess, you never have like more than one key, and sometimes the key and the door are like very, very close together. So a lot of them are pretty straightforward, which is why I did like Lake Bed, and that's why I said Lake Bed was actually the hardest dungeon in the game, because I feel like that's the only dungeon in the game where it feels like you can go to multiple places, but I don't even know if you have more than one key at a time. But yeah, as far as like navigating a dungeon, it is one of the more simpler games, and maybe that's why people love. But like, even so, with a lot of the design being pretty like on the easier side, like they don't overwhelm you, I think the design is so fun and interesting in that like all the dungeons have a lot of good character to them, and I think that's why people love them, because I don't think people got like super, super stuck, maybe. And that's why they're so loved. And, you know, I'm all for that. Like, I don't mind. Like, sometimes it gets to a point where maybe a dungeon's like too easy and it's not fun. Although, I mean, if it's a first dungeon, it's fine. But I think a mix is good, but I would probably prefer Twilight Princess dungeon design over like an Oracle of Ages design most of the time. I would still like something like a Oracle of Ages dungeon sometimes, but most of the time I'd probably take a Twilight Princess design. But like a game like Oracle of Ages where you could be holding like 3 or 4 keys at once, and there's some ridiculous puzzles and figuring out where to go and when to go, and so much of the dungeons open you. Like, I mean, in Oracle, I haven't played Ages in a while, but in Seasons, I was in the final 2 dungeons for like 2 hours, which is twice as long as like any dungeon I was in Twilight Princess. This was the first time I did like any side content before. Like, I maybe played like I probably played like the hookshot minigame once, and I collected a few bugs the last time I played, but I didn't do like any side content before. And I had a lot of fun with it. I just did as much as I could, like within, like I didn't explore a ton. Like I could have found a lot more content, but I just wanted to do enough to like justify the category and like do the category justice, I could say. Like I wasn't going to do every cave, but like I found that ice block cave, and I found the like the Death Mountain like cave with the magnet boots. And that was pretty cool because it just felt like new content to me because I'd never done them before. I only got a few of the bugs because apparently I thought, like most Zelda games, you know, having played Skyward Sword, Link to the Past, I thought I needed a bug net to get the bugs. So I was like, oh, I'll just go back and get the bug net later. You know, I got to get those bugs. So I would see a bug and I wouldn't get it because thinking I needed the bug net. And then it turns out, and then I looked up like Twilight Princess bug net, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm stupid. I could just literally walk up and grab these bugs. Ace is not a side content player. I usually am not much of a side content player unless I'm like really into a game. But for all these reviews, I do enjoy doing it because sometimes it's like totally brand new content for me because I usually don't do much of it, so it is kind of fun to play an old game and experience something new. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are kind of opposites. Obviously, you have the art styles being one cartoony, the other one trying to be realistic. But then also, in pacing, I think the first half of Wind Waker is great, and the second half is bad. Whereas in Twilight Princess, the first half is bad and the second half is great. And then Wind Waker has like no dungeons, and Twilight Princess has the most of any 3D game. Yeah, it's interesting. And then like, yeah, Ganondorf is very like, Ganondorf's more cunning and calculated, but less powerful in Wind Waker. And then Twilight Princess Ganondorf is more like just kind of violent and vicious, but not as cunning. I don't know. What's going on, Zachary? Say good review overall. Why did you give side content 4 out of 5? I heard virtually nothing negative mentioned. I personally think it's an easy 5. Such fun mini games. So the thing is that I grade it. It was close to a 5, but maybe I'm being overly a stickler, but it's in relation to everything in the series. And when it comes to side content, I feel like there's only one game that I'm probably going to give a 5 in side content. And because it does it in such a unique and awesome way that I don't think any other game like comes close to its level. So that's the reason why. I mean, it's pretty obvious anyway. I think Majora's Mask may be the only game I give a 5 for side content because not just because side content is the game, but it's like the side content in the main quest are so woven together, and the side content that you do in the game, I don't know, it feels more rewarding. Some of the rewards are also incredible, like on from a gameplay perspective. Oh, you thought I meant Breath of the Wild. No, I think Majora's Mask, I Breath of the Wilds, I will see. I'll have to see on that. Which game had better Link transformation, Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask? Majora's Mask, 100%. Yeah, Wolf Link, it's not that interesting to me. It's very basic. You have like your 2 attacks, and that's pretty much it. I was only in wolf form when I'm only in wolf form when I need to be in wolf form. Whereas Majora's Mask, you're rolling around as Goron Link when you don't have to be, or Deku Link or whatever. You have a lot more fun with the Twilight Princess ones. I mean with the Majora's Mask ones. Waffle says Twilight Princess has some amazing dungeons, but the water dungeon was a big difficulty spike compared to the 2 before it. It took you forever. I agree. I think the placement of Lake Bed is weird. It makes sense because of the forest fire water thing, but I said in the review it's the hardest dungeon in the game in terms of like actually figuring out where to go and how to navigate. Ryan North says, rumor has it that you're going to dress as the postman for Halloween. Inquiring minds need to know. It's not the worst idea. We'll see. That's all I'll say. Yeah, I was saying earlier, I had people guess how many times the postman interrupted me in the game, because I literally scrubbed through my entire playthrough on the footage, which was over 300 gigs of files, by the way. 10 times. It was 10 times the postman interrupted me. And I didn't read, and out of spite, I don't read any of his letters. Out of spite, because I don't like him. I like him in Majora's Mask. I don't like him in this game. It's just the cherry on top of the pacing of Twilight Princess is to just have the postman interrupt you. Items are very solid. I think I said in the review, the only thing that really held it back was that most of the items just kind of fell off after the dungeon. But I mean, there's a few spinner moments that they threw into the game. Slingshot, best item in the game. Yeah, true. I didn't even mention. Yeah, that's one thing I should have mentioned is Slingshot, they like nullify so fast in the game that it's like, why do we even bother? Like, they should have just gave you the bow or something. Slingshot was, that's another reason. And that's Skyward Sword completely. That's why Skyward Sword, I think I gave the items a 5 in Skyward Sword, because even though they're not as flashy as Twilight Princess, they made it that you were using pretty much all the items through the whole game. And even the Slingshot had its use cases, which if you upgraded it and you could do like the Scattershot Slingshot, it was actually good against keys and stuff, because if you had like a whole cluster of them, then it was good to take them out. Oh, the sumo. Yeah, can we talk about sumo in Twilight Princess? Yeah, that part, that's why I put that as the start of like the little pacing clip, because it's just like an eye roll thing. Like the sumo game, I was super good at it. Like I destroyed in the 2 sumo games you have to do. But it's just one of those things of like, we get these mini games that would be fun side games, but they just kind of throw it at you and you're just like, dude, I just want to get into dungeon. Why are you making me do this? Quagman says, I feel like the items being useless outside of their dungeons could have been justified if the dungeon order was unlinear in the second half. Yeah, that could have been too. I mean, how did they not do more with the spin? I mean, everyone says, how did they not do more with the spinner? Like, there should have been spinner like courses or something. I mean, there's that one little area that I found that you can use it, and that took me a lot of tries. It was fun and challenging, and you also use it like very briefly in the Cave of Ordeals. Ace says, A Link to the Past is one of the best beginnings in a video game. I agree. It's pretty awesome, and I'm more of a, that's why again pacing was low for me on Twilight Princess. I'm more of a, let's get into the game, let's not get too bogged down with story, because as much as I love the story of Zelda, it's not like this super deep level of storytelling, right? So like, you know, games like Link to the Past, they get it. You get that little text at the beginning. Boom, Zelda's calling you. She needs help. You're running through the rain. Your uncle's dead or whatever. Like, you're right in the action. Link to the Past gets it. You know, Ocarina of Time. Get your sword, get your shield. Boom, you're in the first dungeon of the game. I love that. And I thought Wind Waker had the real good balance of good story, but getting you into the game. I know people don't love Forsaken Fortress, but I will take Wind Waker's beginning over Twilight Princess beginning any day of the week. Twilight Princess definitely went for a much slower approach. They wanted to introduce you to all these characters. They wanted to show like what the life was. They wanted to take it to another level, and I just don't think it worked out. And I even feel like Skyward Sword had a more effective beginning because it introduced all the key characters that were actually going to be important through the whole game. Whereas Twilight Princess, a lot of the characters that they introduced at the beginning don't really matter that much. So even though some people like Skyward Sword's beginning worse, like it's still like it's way more compelling to me. It's establishing Link and Zelda's relationship. You get Groose in there. It's way more complimentary to the rest of the game than Twilight Princess. You guys were awesome. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I will do more of these. We will do some for the reviews I've already done, like Wind Waker and Skyward Sword, maybe Phantom Hourglass, Oracle of Seasons, and Phantom. I think I said Phantom Hourglass. I think Original Legend of Zelda is what I didn't mention. But at least I'll do it for the 3D games for sure. And then, of course, after the Link to the Past review, we can do this. And then maybe just general, hey, if something happens like Nintendo Direct, maybe we can go live or something. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.